Hello everyone, Authentic here with a 1v1 tournament match between Blues and Ichbineinkonto. We are just about ready to start, so the map is loading and I will switch over to off-world while double checking that everything's working. It looks like everything is working and we are off game one between Ichbineinkonto and Blues in this two-game series for the placements for the 1v1 tournament. Blues chose series as the map, and we do have expansive robots, nomads, and scientists. And there would be some decent scientist spots if it was just a little bit closer to the iron. Oh, maybe there is something over here you can do as scientist. But nomads also would definitely be an option. On this map, you could always go for some sort of expansive and or robot play. But, I mean, I'd really want to try and figure out a way to make the scientist work if possible. But, yeah, nomads, definitely an option. Plenty of aluminum somewhere over here for the silicon slant into this high here. And then go for... Is there any, like, aluminum on salt here? Maybe over here. This would be a great spot for a second. Nomad found, but there are plenty of spots about all the players are just waiting to get some more cash. And then Ichbineinkonto is going to take that nomad spot over there, and then, yep, exactly where I would have thought. And then Blues decided to go with the boring but good robot found, and that's pretty bright. HQ. So Ichbineinkonto found it first, got the extra cash, bought up all the electronics that they needed. Buying the extra 9 now is not needed, as Blues starts with the full amount of electronics that he needs to get to his upgrade. Blues upgrading to HQ2 first, as Blues does not have to buy up any resources. Immediately claiming... Oh, that's a water tile too. Immediately claiming some water. Oh, there's also some salt. This is actually a pretty nice spot. Some salt for the farms. Going to go to on this spot some solar condensers. Interesting choice because water is pretty cheap. And then Ichbineinkonto upgrading HQ2 as well, has 3 claims. Need to decide what to do with them. All the prices are pretty low at this point, and there's not a lot of profits to be made on world, except for power. So actually, I wouldn't be opposed moving into power if you're Ichbineinkonto. Just don't overdo it, simply because Blues is going to use power for shipping. And if you move into power and can keep that online, it does make a decent amount of money per tile, especially if you go for solar panels, which have no inputs, and then you might be able to keep Blues from moving into power. Blues has that sort of same argument there, but Blues has already decided to go into steel mills. That's another reason for Ichbineinkonto to move into power as well. What is Ichbineinkonto moving into? Getting some carbon down and then going into water. That's also fine. But we'll have to see how this goes. Pardon me, I need to bring my Twitch chat up here so I can see what people are saying in this little slowdown. Blue says 10k, cash on head needs 15k for the upgrade. Ichbineinkonto is going for that power play, so I do actually kind of like that. Ichbineinkonto just needs to goon this power here. And then maybe Ichbineinkonto will be able to pay off some of this debt soon and then make some money and then keep Blues out of the power market. That would be ideal. There are underground nukes, though I did not notice that when I was looking at the map, and that turns this cave play for Ichbineinkonto into something that's not actually that good. Fortunately, there are claim returns, so Ichbineinkonto is going to be able to rotate out, but 2 more tiles that can be nuked down to trace really easily, so Ichbineinkonto is going to have to worry about that. Extra claim is going to go pretty high, and 24k already with his instant bidding. Would anyone buy into the natural short of uranium? Yes, Blues bought into the natural short, so Blues is going to make a decent amount of money here from this natural short, and Ichbineinkonto is not, so that's going to help Blues pull further into the lead. Blues does get the auction for 32k, and Ichbineinkonto now making some of that power money. And just with the power price going on and off overnight, it shouldn't drive the power too far. It should have a chance to recover. It's not the best play, but so many things are so low on that market beforehand. The Kanto needs to get to an upgrade, and we're at 9.3k, so Kanto's not too far behind Blues. Blues does get to that upgrade first. And yeah, as pointed out in chat, talking about whether you should go for a Nomad here, I definitely would have preferred Scientist myself. If you could squeeze it in, maybe over here would have worked. Would have enough water to work with. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking now, especially with this cave here. 4 tiles of water, and then another 2 and another 2. Would definitely make a Scientist work over there. You would at least not only have to worry about nukes in one location, but this is an option for Kanto to nuke back, but Kanto's having a little bit trouble with cash here. In part because of the found that they took and where they found it at. There's another nuke again. Kanto really needed to defend this spot particularly because it's next to those caves. So now operating off of 1 trace and 1 low. Kanto does have enough to defend there. You know, Blues, I do take that back. Blues isn't the very most nukeable of threats here. Simply because of how territory is at. So where's Kanto going to go for the silicon? Well, there's some silicon that you can ship in, not too far away from his base. But once you move into there, just make sure you goon some of those, because otherwise those nukes are going to be a problem throughout the rest of the game. Power play did make a decent amount of money. Let's go back, make sure we go back to the correct item here, but now power's dying and dead, so it's time to get out of these solar panels and move into something else. Kanto has plenty of water. Maybe just... what do you move into with those? These prices are not fun at all. Chemicals, food, that's what you move into, one of those two. Blues using the input adjacency here, making good use of that, which it definitely helps when you have all these low prices on series and low profits. Financial instruments gets picked up for Blues by 14k, an interesting choice considering that almost nobody is in debt, and there's not a lot of ways to get into debt on series right now, simply because everything is, all those prices are really awkwardly low. Kanto in some food over here. Okay, that's good. Like to see that. Could go into some more water, but doesn't have the claims for it. It does have a decent stockpile of food, so I like to see some potentially some more water here. Definitely more silicon's going to be necessary. Yeah, 2 claims over here for the silicon. I need to goon at least one of them if Kanto's going to have a chance to come back. Now, one good thing is Kanto did get up to HQ 4 first, and Blues could upgrade at any time, just needs to sell some stuff around. It does get that upgrade. But both players still in this unnecessary power. I'd like to see them switch out of that. There's, and Kanto just needs to get in some more of these base resources here. So moving into this, yeah, I like moving into these double aluminum water tiles, but you actually need to get some aluminum production down for Kanto here. Actually, is Kanto not making any aluminum whatsoever? Yeah, that's a little bit of a mistake. Aluminum's pretty expensive and pretty profitable. There goes another nuke on Kanto's territory, and Blues is just going to try and block the adjacency here, so... Again, these nukes keep on raining down from Blues and are completely unanswered by Kanto. So, this is looking less than... a lot rougher for Kanto here. Moving into a patent lab. Where is that patent lab? There's where the goon went. On the patent lab next to the colony.
The patent lab is constructed.
There's also core samples. As someone pointed out in chat, you could use the core samples over here to fix those nukes as well.
The black market is
Or
open
can you
for
use them over
business.
on this side of the base? Also,
New
Blues
land
moving
is
into a patent
available
lab
for
of
auction.
his own. Howard's finally making a slight comeback, but not very much. Now, is Kanto going to race for slant drilling? Yes. Kanto is going to race for slant drilling, and with his goon, that will solve his problems, assuming goons some of these silicon tiles, which is what Kanto needs to do. Otherwise, these nukes are just going to keep on coming. This will also help with this aluminum water field over here, as will the ice that it's sitting on. Let's see, moving into electronics for Kanto. Blues over here looking at liquid batteries, which is a decent pickup as well to keep that water online. Blues has enough water production. Kanto does not have enough water production, but still has a rather large stockpile. Aluminum is still extremely pricey, and Kanto just finally going into one aluminum tile, but has so much aluminum next to the second base that we could go into. One nuke coming down from Kanto onto Blues. It's on the aluminum. Unfortunately, robots need half the aluminum to upgrade, and Blues is already at HQ4, so that's not going to be the best nuke long term. As Blues already almost halfway there in terms of aluminum to get to the upgrade. No, Blues, sorry, is already there. I'm looking at the steel chart. Meanwhile, both players have a decent amount of money, and they're daring each other to upgrade. Kanto's upgrade 66k to upgrade. Blues upgrade 46k total in cash on hand. Blues is short in chemicals, as Kanto is not in chemicals. Researching nanotechnology, which is a great pickup. Kanto's going for perpetual motion, which I think is a mistake, especially because power is so cheap for both players. Beating Blues to nanotech would definitely have been a better choice. Kanto moving, getting frozen by EMP. There's not enough black market from Kanto onto Blues this game whatsoever. Kanto's EMPs are still 3.5k. And some decent targets that you could do damage. Blues, by finding near the edge, his base is cramped. And Kanto does take a very risky upgrade. Blues going to try and buy in. Yes, Blues is. So does Kanto have the income to protect himself or not? That is going to be interesting. How's Blues hacks coming through? Chem short coming in 6 seconds, but Blues is actually auto-selling chems. Kanto still almost has enough money to buy 2 shares. Blues has enough money to buy 2 shares as well, which will put Blues 1.5 shares behind. So it looks like Kanto will just barely be able to defend themselves, potentially. Except for maybe these EMPs. That's one other thing Kanto really could do right now is Kanto's EMPs at 4.5k could throw them back, throw some of them at Blues to try and stop this majority buy from coming out here. It's very close right now. Blues has enough cash on hand to purchase 3 pips of stock, and Kanto doesn't quite have enough cash to purchase 2. So Blues right here might just be able to finish it before Kanto can defend himself. It's going to be very, very close indeed. These freezes are doing excellent work against Kanto, and Kanto just not using the black market enough against Blues right back.
The black market is online.
It's like Blues is going to take it. 25k to 3k That risky upgrade coming back to bite Kanto in the end. And there's that buy button. Game 1 goes to Blues. So, just remember, when you hit that upgrade button, you need to have a plan to defend yourself if the other player is close to buying you out. And if you do an upgrading in a situation like this, where it looks like you're lagging behind, especially because your opponent is attacking you with EMPs, and your EMPs are only 4.5k, use some of those EMPs. Blues' territory here, you put an EMP right here or whatever, and Kanto may have gotten himself the ability to defend himself and make the game drag on. And then yes, the nukes that were coming through, that's something Kanto needed to worry about, but I said enough about that during the cast, so we are on to game number 2. Hello everyone, welcome to game number 2 in this 2-game series between Blues and Ichbineinkonto, who I'm just going to call Kanto because my German is bad, as you just heard. Philothanic joining me today is Black Magic. On this map we do have expansive scientists, nomads, and elites, and I'm assuming you've had time to look at the map, Black Magic. What do you think about it?
I have had a little bit of time. I'm not the best to spot a good elite spot at the moment, but I know up in the north, I see a little bit of a spot that you could use for a scientific. There's a little bit of iron, there's a little bit of uranium, and there's a little bit of a place where you can have some dry ice. Other than that, I'm really loath to go with Nomad at this point, but you almost might have to. Like, I'm looking for a good expansive spot, and I'm just not seeing it unless you do that to the north. That really seems to be the best spot, in my opinion. What about you?
Somewhere up in the north with an expansive actually wouldn't be too terrible. I think that's better than a scientist, because there isn't really any basalt right next to ice. But Kanto's going to go for a nomad next to this double high, really high, and then low. And then where does the second found go? Next to the very high.
Oh, I like Blues' found there.
I didn't see that
for. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that, but I do like Blues' found. That being said, I'm okay with Kanto's found just because you can get. I was looking at the good carbon is down at the bottom of the map. Unfortunately, there are nukes on the market though, so that would really concern me. Ultimately, he can rotate out of that, but. I don't know, I kind of like Blues' spot a little bit better, and that's actually a spot that I completely missed.
Yeah, I missed that one too at first. The only downside, this isn't super optimal, you don't have as much ice directly next to the headquarters, but you can get around that. It's not too bad, just 2 tiles over here that won't be something with water or whatever. Blues does have that free goon, hasn't used it yet, moving immediately into some solar condensers. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Blues put the goon on this very high carbon over here, just so Kanto can't nuke it. The question is, if you're Kanto right now, you're operating off of 3 very high tiles. And where do you put the goon for a potential nuke? Probably on the silicon is long term, you need the most of it.
Yeah,
but right now it's really cheap.
If you have to do a goon, I would definitely goon that the very high silicon as opposed to the carbon, because you can just return the carbon, and I mean, in a little while, as soon as you set up, I mean, you have core samples, so you could always just move it around if you really needed to. I would say for Blues, I actually like where he put the goon squad. Actually, I would have moved it over to the right. One more space. The reason being, the glass is way more useful than the steel. If you get your steel frozen out, it's not as big of a deal. But I try to do something to protect the glass instead of the steel. That being said, you know, he can he can leave it there, and you could rotate it into power later on, and it becomes a decent spot.
The goon's in the correct spot. The glass and steel maybe are in the incorrect spot. That's the problem with that right now.
You know, I'm actually surprised that he hasn't used his other goon, because I would be tempted to just goon those 2 spots straight across. And since the glass is making so much money and is going to continue to make so much money, especially because Kanto's not supplying that market. Honestly, but I mean, he could use it up on the reactors, and that'd be okay. Reactors are... Let's see how much they are.
I haven't mentioned Kanto's early patent lab play, but he did just pick up a superconductor right now. Put down 2 solar panels, which are gooned, and is now moving into transparent aluminum, which is an interesting choice simply because you don't use transparent aluminum, you don't use glass for upgrades as a nomad, and that's not really going to dock much off of the cost of the space elevator long term, so perhaps it's just a precautionary move, preventative move against Blues scientist right here.
You know, I don't mind transparent aluminum, honestly, but let me get back really quickly. I don't like how Blues went into power really quickly, because as soon as you see that that Kanto has superconductor, I mean, Blues still has 21k of debt. You can see power is just completely going to be dead. He's never going to actually make any money out of it, so you're just wasting time, and steel is at 104, so I don't like that switch over there. I rather would have, you know, maybe he's crashing the power market before Kanto can really make a lot of money from it, but I'd rather use black market to do that and just stay in steel, because now he's effectively just limited his ability to expand.
Right, well now Kanto's problem is that going for this patent play, I've used a bunch of money on these patents that are now not doing anything, and as Kat mentioned in chat, I think it was Kat, that Kanto should have gone for nanotechnology over transparent aluminum, because then, now that the price of power was killed, Kanto could have scrapped the solar panels and gotten 200 silicon out of it, and be well on his way to getting the upgrade to HQ4.
Yep, yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, I don't mind the patents that Kanto got, because chems are so cheap that it's totally okay. I don't know why Kanto is auto-selling carbon, though. What I would like to see is Kanto pull up that carbon claim and use it next to his base, maybe on the other side, and instead of the ion collector or something like that, go into some of these water processors, which are pretty profitable.
Yes, they are. Optimization Center immediately getting bid up to $20,000. You could see it go higher, and it does go all the way up to 32, in part because the chems are pretty cheap. 36k,
leave it. No, Kanto needs
$40,000.
to leave it so you can go back into power, honestly. Yeah, 40 I think is way too much for that. I mean, building it is only 10k. I don't know. I think you've effectively yielded the power market to Blues at that point, and nobody is really making any power, so that's just going to be a strong move for Blues, not taking it for that much.
Yeah, anything. So I could see going all the way up to 28k perhaps, but
yeah,
that would be, at this situation, I think my limit, especially because, once again, both players weren't in that much debt, and power's all the way back up again. So either player, especially if you're Kanto with superconductor, could have made a rush for the power market. And then, as Game Slayer points out, if you did have it, you know, if you had a nanotech, you could always scrap it and be that much closer to the upgrade for 40k in debt, and that actually might have been worth it.
Excellent freeze there by Blues, shutting down the power. That's just going to sink Kanto in a little bit more debt. It's going to be a little bit harder to, and Blues being at HQ4, that's that's a big advantage right there.
Yeah, Blues going into some remote steel production, going to be flying that in. Now, fortunately for Blues, this is another one of those games without pirates or magnetic storms. Part of the new next version changes to the black market, and I'm not sure that I really like that.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, they're so strong. They're so strong on IO. I actually really like having pirates and magnetic storms and things like that on IO, just because you have to ship so many things remotely. It uses some black market items that are frankly underutilized in the game, and so I kind of like having them there.
I think if you're going to have it where everything is random like it is for the offensive items, then the frequency, their weighted average needs to be higher, so at least one of them shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I can agree with that. So, I mean, I think it's one of those things that you just, I'd like to see it back in the game, and it's just one of those things you need to evaluate when you're founding. Everybody has the exact same opportunity to, found in whatever location. So, that'd be nice to introduce it back there. I'd like to point out that Kanto is making almost 2K a second from power at this point, and is going to be crashing it out very quickly.
Blues is already found himself in the C debt. Only about
62%, 65% toward finishing off everything. So,
yep, that's one benefit. Blues definitely going in for lots of these profitable markets. Kanto has pretty much everything that makes him money frozen by a very well-timed EMP. Kanto's EMPs and power surges are only 7k, but unfortunately Blues' base is such that it's going to be hard for Kanto to kill anything, versus Kanto's base is much easier to hit with these EMPs here. Kanto doesn't have enough money for the nuclear plants, but the price of power went down a lot anyway, and 67k to pay off in debt there. So Kanto really just needs to come up with some money, and come up with money fast. And the question is, how do you do that? Farms are...
You need to, as difficult as it's going to be, you need to sub out of those nuclear plants, because if not, he's completely dead. At this point, you also need to... I would be
get out of that patent for
shipping the solar condensers. I would be shipping the solar condensers a little bit quicker, just to get that cash in and start selling it down, because he's in real danger at this point, with Blues already starting to make a move and most of his tiles are getting shut down. There we go. We see some greenhouse farms abandoning the power. That'll help a little bit, but I think it's just going to be a little bit too late, based on Blues is going to be able to get all that glass money in immediately.
This is also where going to nanotech would have been excellent. You could get out of that patent lab, get another 10 worth of electronics, get out of the optimization center, get 20 electronics at $240. That will go a long way to helping defend yourself. More EMPs coming out from Blues. It looks like Blues is going to take this series quite easily.
So right there, that I think was actually an incorrect freeze by Kanto on the farms. The reason being, just taking a look at everything, yes, the food was more profitable, but the food is away from your base. Meanwhile, the oxygen, the solar condensers are right next to your base. Oxygen is worth a bunch, and it's immediately available. So I think that was the wrong freeze, but doesn't matter. It looks like it's over.
it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, unfortunately, Kanto didn't have enough income. Wasn't, once again, made some of the same mistake from last time, not paying attention when upgrading. Wondering now, where does all the money come from? It's a scientist. Scientists can almost always make money, right?
And it's right next to your base, and Blues did a good job with gooning some of the most profitable things, getting into some of the most profitable things quickly, and having those solar condensers right next to their base, and having the glass right next to your base in a Chinese colony. It's that made all of the difference, honestly. You can take all of that Blues debt that Blues has, and it doesn't really matter, because the game's over quickly. So
right. Kanto also had... Kanto got out of that carbon. I did not notice that. Could have gone into electronics there as well. And then the other thing for Kanto, Kanto founded on this side, the right side of this high aluminum, instead of, say, the north side, which would have been strictly better. On the north side, you have more ways to spread out your claims.
Spread out, yeah.
Which would have mitigated the EMP problem.
Yes.
Because then Blues couldn't shut down almost all of Kanto's production just with one well-placed EMP. But yeah, if you're going to go fast, Patent Lab HQ2 on IO, always get nanotech.
So one other thing I'd like to point out, for 1v1, taking optimization centers can be kind of dicey. If you happen to note, 0 optimizations were ever performed. So that was a whole bunch of debt that was taken on. What was that, like 40 or 36
debt.
40k of debt, 0 optimizations out of that, and effectively killed Kanto's ability to make money off of power, which I think could have definitely helped, because, I mean, there was a period of time that Kanto just couldn't keep any money in his pocket, and power would have been a great one. Blues had abandoned it, and you have superconductor, so.
Yeah, not letting Blues get that and then having the ability to go back into power with superconductor definitely would have been a good idea. So just some things that might work when you're playing on ranked queue and you're not queuing up against Blues all the time, but when you're playing, the top tier off-world talent, then you're going to all those little mistakes are going to come back and bite you.
Yeah. The biggest thing I would tell people for IO is the two things that happen to spike in price all the time are oxygen and fuel. Fuel, because everybody's got to locate things remotely, and oxygen just because it's not always accessible close to your base, and other things require oxygen, like being able to a water processor, for instance. So the first thing I look for is, where is the closest place I can put a solar condenser? And in this case, unfortunately, Kanto wasn't quite close enough, whereas Blues was. So that was a huge advantage, and you can see the price of oxygen was just a great moneymaker. The other thing is, being a glass colony, Blues found that little basalt area, and that was a fantastic way to make a whole bunch of early money and not have to worry about the silicon price and feeding money to Kanto. So,
Yep. Yeah, Blue's mentioning in chat that a little bit low on the preferred amount for the scientist of basalt, and Cat mentioning that you really want 6 is the ideal. That sounds about right. Somewhere that 5 to 6 range for basalt tiles. Thanks for watching, everyone. For Black Magic, I'm Philopanic, signing out.